8 ways that spammers get your email address. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. It's a common question. Here's one example. How do so many individuals on the internet get my email address and consistently send me junk mail? Spam, honestly, is the bane of email. It really is. I've heard numbers upwards of 80% of all email traveling around the internet is spam, and it may even be higher than that. The question, of course, is, well, great, I haven't done anything. Why am I getting spam? How did they get my email address? There are so many different ways. It's almost impossible to keep your email address out of the hands of spammers. Here are some thoughts about the different ways that spammers do get your email address. One of the most public, of course, is data breaches. When you think about it, we're always concerned about data breaches exposing things like passwords or credit card information. But what we don't remember is that almost every data breach includes email addresses. In which case, well, yeah, those get into the hands of the spammers almost immediately. Those are real accounts opened by real people. So spammers love knowing that here's a list of email addresses associated with whatever data breach may have happened. Now, the second one is a little less obvious, and that is simply that spammers can buy or rent lists from other spammers. Now, on one hand, in the it's not quite spam arena, marketers have been doing this for some time. Marketers are able to purchase email lists for them to send their marketing stuff to you. Now, you and I probably consider that spam, and that is one way that it happens. But of course, spammers themselves, ultimately, they're just marketers of a sort. They too will exchange, buy, sell, rent lists of email addresses that they know are legit, that they can then start to send their spam to. Website harvesting is something I've talked about before. Basically, anytime you post your email address in a place that can be viewed publicly, then spammers have been known to run scripts, run bots basically, that are scanning websites for anything that looks like an email address, and they start sending spam to that email address. Social media harvesting is kind of a subset of that, in that we often have our email address associated with our various social media accounts. In some cases, I've seen people even posting their email addresses directly on services like Twitter. Again, spammers are going to be looking at that for email addresses, anything that looks like an email address, and they're going to add it to their list to send spam to. Now, another one that I think a lot of people don't quite think of as often, but I do, and that's guessing. By guessing, I mean that they will take common email names and use those at various email services. For example, Leo. First name only is, in many cases, a relatively valuable email address in some circles. So if I had leo@gmail.com, well, I'd probably be getting spam there. Where do they find these? Well, from the other email addresses. I have leo@askleo.com, and sure, that's getting spam. But because Leo is a first name, spammers are trying all the first names that they can think of at all of the major email services. Same thing for common patterns. If you've ever gotten an email address at an organization or maybe for work, it's not uncommon for that email address to be of the form first initial, last name, or first name, last initial. Basically some common constructs based on your name. Spammers know this too, and they will basically take your name, any of the names that they find out on the internet, make a few of those email addresses that that person may or may not actually have, and start sending spam to them. Another, of course, is phishing. We worry, of course, about phishing in the sense that if it's truly successful, you've handed over your credentials to a phisher and they can then start to log into whatever account they've been phishing you for. But if you think about it, part of those credentials is usually your email address. So even if you don't actually follow through, even if the phishers don't get access to your account, you've still handed over an email address that they can then turn around and start sending spam to. The last one I'm going to talk about isn't really as common as it once was, but it is very true, and that is simply malware. If you've got a keylogger installed, if you've got basically any kind of malware on your machine, one of the things that that malware could be looking for is email, specifically email addresses that it finds not only from what you type in, but from what others may be sending to you or what you may be sending to others. It could be collecting all sorts of email addresses simply from your machine. Honestly, that's another strong reason for making sure that your machine is as secure as possible and as malware-free as possible. There are probably, I'll say, a dozen other ways that spammers basically harvest and find and create and guess email addresses. But the bottom line is they do. And you don't have to necessarily have done anything bad yourself other than just having an email address. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/172035. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.